What's up guys, it's DarkArmedDuelist, and today we're going to be doing a Kashtira deck profile, and I just got top 16 with this deck. This deck is absolutely crazy, and I actually attended the Tuscaloosa regional, which was the largest regional they've ever had in Tuscaloosa, with 266 participants. I got 12th place, finishing in the top 16, and even getting my invite, which is amazing. I want to give a quick shout out to all of my opponents who were extremely strong and really good duelists. We also had a lot of fun at the regionals. I want to give a shout out to all my friends that I rode down to the regionals with because it was so much fun. And shout outs to Bud's Place, my locals. So without further ado guys, don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, hit the bell there so you can become part of Notification Squad, and we're going to take a look at this deck. So let's get straight on into this. So first off, just with any Kashtira deck, you're going to be playing 3 copies of Kashtira Unicorn. This card is an extremely important 3-of that's going to help you get to your copies of Kashtira Birth or Theosis, whichever one you don't open with. And it also lets you take a look at your opponent's extra deck and rip an important card out of it whenever it is involved in battle or your opponent activates a monster effect after the chain, which is really a cool effect about this card because usually I go for Zeus with this card, and it's a card you always want to start with in your hand because it's a 1-card starter. We then play 3 copies of Kashtira Fenrir. This card is awesome because it searches out your copies of your Kashtira monsters that you don't have for combo, and it also can banish a card that's face up on the field when it's involved in a battle or your opponent activates a monster effect after the chain of that monster, which is a really cool effect. We then play just 2 copies of Rise Heart. Rise Heart is a very important card in this deck and is a really good card to banish the top 3 of your opponent's deck. It can special summon itself like the rest of your Kashtira monsters, which is a great effect. And it's really just a good extender that you usually search off your copy of your Fenrir. But I usually side out the second copy depending on the matchup. If I know my opponent's not going to be banishing cards from my deck or milling cards to the graveyard, I usually side one out because you only ever really need one. And it's a really insane card. You usually make this card after you summon out Shangri-La so you can manage the top 3 of your opponent's deck and lock a zone, while also banishing your copy of Big Bang, which is usually the target that you go for with this card, so you can get back one of your materials that's attached to your copy of Shangri-La. We then play just a single copy of Ogre. Ogre's a great extender in the deck. I'm actually not playing Preparation in this build, so this card is just a good extender in the deck, and I really like this card as a 1-of, but I ended up siding it out a lot in my games because it was a really good card going into the first game, but going into the later games, I wanted to play more cards that would hit the opponent, like cards like Dimensional Shifter, so I ended up siding it out for stuff like that depending on my matchup. We then play a single copy of the Tier Limit Kashtira. This card is great, and the extender I usually searched for, unless I knew I had game, then I would search out the copy of the Scareclaw. This card is great to be able to put on your side of the field. The only downside is that quick effect, you can banish a Kashtira or a Tier Limit card to special summon this card. So you have to banish a card to be able to special summon it, which is a great effect, that it is a quick effect on this card, and I love that about this card. This card saved me so many times, and it's just a really good extender in the deck to help you lock more zones. We then play a single copy of the Scareclaw Kashtira. This card is insane in the deck because it's just really good to be able to use this card in the build. It has the exact same effect, that quick effect. You can special summon this card from your hand, and if you do, you banish a Kashtira card, which is really good from your hand or your graveyard, just like your copy of your Tier Limit. And this card also can attack while in defense position, which is really good because you just throw this card in defense position. It's basically a super heavy samurai that can attack in defense, and I love that about this card. It's so good in this deck, and it just helps out so much in this particular deck to be able to just extend and get more monsters on your side of the field. We then mained 3 Lava Golem. Lava Golem was MVP along with Dimensional Shifter. This card just helps you break boards, especially when you lose the die roll. You can basically just out your opponent's board by giving them Lava Golem. Then you can just summon out Fenrir and attack into it and get rid of it, so it's very easy to deal with. It actually does come up in time to be able to use Lava Golem, which I never went into time. Some of my rounds were as short as like 6 minutes with this deck. Some of them were as long as 30, but it just depended on the matchup, what you were playing against, and if you won or lost the die roll. But this card really could come up in time because it does that 1,000 points of burn damage, and it's a great card in this particular deck to main because going second with this deck is really strong with this card to be able to just out your opponent's board and break their monsters. We then play 3 copies of Ash Blossom. Ash Blossom is just basically the best hand trap in the game, besides like Dimensional Shifter in this deck, depending on the matchup. But this card is like the most versatile of all the hand traps because it just stops your opponent from touching the deck. It's always good in your hand to be able to stop your opponent, and it's a fantastic card overall. So that's it for the monsters, guys. Let's get into the spells. So for the spells, we were playing a single copy of Terraforming. Terraforming is just to get to our copy of our Pressured Planet, which is an awesome card. We played 2 copies of Lance. This card is really good to be able to activate. It actually came in really handy in my final round at table 8, which was really cool because I actually blocked a Imperm with this to be able to activate the copy of Unicorn's effect because they tried to activate Imperm to stop my Unicorn's effect, and I went Lance, and they were like, oh, well, I guess you get your search. I'm like, yeah, here we go. We're gonna go with this. So I went full combo, and actually because of this card ended up OTKing the opponent, which was really cool. I had to go a little bit of a weird way about it because I couldn't target the copy of my my unicorn with a copy of Theosis, which was a little bit of a downside because this card makes them immune. So I played around it, which was fine. But there's plenty of ways to do it in this deck. I already had Theosis in the hand, so I searched Birth, activated Birth, normal summoned out the copy of Fenrir, and then we went with Theosis that I already had in the hand and went off. So it was fine. We still have plays around it. We then play 2 copies of Enemy Controller. Enemy Controller is actually really good in the mirror because you can take one of their cards, especially if they activate Shangri-Ir during the standby phase and special summon out a card. You can actually take their monster away, which is really cool. And if they're playing any of the Kashtira cards, you can actually take those cards and then make a copy of a Rise Heart on it, because if they activate the Shangri-Ir during standby phase, this card's met its requirements, so you can make for 1 card, which actually came up in my duels. I took a copy of the Tearlaments Kashtira, and I made a copy of a Rise Heart, which was just really cool with this card, which is really nice. But this card is really, really good, and it's just really insane, especially if your opponent targets one of your Kashtira monsters that you want to go off with, like Imperm, you can dodge it, which is really cool. We then play 3 copies of Book of Moon. This card is just insane. It was great every single match. I love this card in the deck, and it's super powerful right now. I like this better than Eclipse because it doesn't let your opponent draw. They can't Ash it. It's just really good. You can basically just set it to your side of the field, use it like a trap since it's a quick play, and it targets the exact monster you want to flip face down. You don't have to like get all of them at once. It's just not needed right now to be able to get all of the cards that your opponent has. Some people will just make a Rise Heart pass, and that's fine. So you can just flip them down with this and go for game. If you're playing against Sprite, you can use it to flip the copy of Gigantic on summon, which is really funny to be able to do because they really need that to go off. So you can flip it face down with this card, which is really nice. We then play 3 copies of the Pressured Planet. This card is insane. It searches your copy of Unicorn. It's basically like 3 more copies of Unicorn in the deck. It's extremely important to play as a 3-up in this build. It also lets you pop a card if you resolve Shangri-Ir's effect, which is nice. And it gives all your monsters an attack boost as well, because basically they all gain 100 attack and defense for each different attribute on the field. So you can make some of your monsters even bigger than they already are, which is really cool. We then play 3 copies of Kashtira Theosis. This card is basically E-Tele. You target one of your Kashtira monsters and special summon from your deck, and defense solution one of your Kashtira monsters that's a different attribute, which is really good. But the great effect of this card is not only that, but if it gets banished, you get to add one of your banished Kashtira cards back to your hand, which are some really funny plays that you can actually pull off with Rise Heart. If you do open Big Bang, you can actually grab a copy of any of the cards that you want to be able to get out, because you can banish it with a Rise Heart and then get this card banished with one of your extenders and then grab the card that you actually want, like a copy of Birth or something like that, which is really neat. Speaking of Birth, we do play 3 copies of Kashtira Birth. This card is insane. This card is basically the 1-card recovery card. It lets you normal summon level 7 monsters without tributing, which is insane. It also has the ability that you can revive one of your Kashtira monsters once per turn, which is really cool. So even if your opponent board breaks you, you can recover, which is really cool by just activating this and having it on the field. If your opponent does not deal with this and you have a copy of Unicorn, you pretty much have won. Like, unless they have multiple negates, that you've won. We then play 3 copies of Pot of Prosperity. Pot of Prosperity is just helping you dig into the deck to get more cards that you need. Plus, it actually comes in extremely handy in the deck with cards like Goliath and your copies of your Garua, the Fossil Knight. There's so many cards in the extra deck that you can banish face down, and then you can grab them with a Rise Heart and basically just go off and grab them back and attach them as material, so you get the maximum effect off your cards. I love this card in the deck, and it basically saved me a bunch of times in this deck. Like if you don't get your copy of Unicorn, you can dig for it with this or get your Pressured Planet. So this card is like MVP. So that's it for the spells, guys. Let's get into the traps. So for the traps, we're playing a single copy of Big Bang. You never want to see this in your opening hand, yet it seemed like every round I opened this card at least one game, which is going to happen. This card is just really good in the deck, but it's really insane to be able to banish off your Rise Heart, so you can actually get one of your copies of your materials and put it back on your side of the field. We then play 3 copies of Infinite Impermanence in the main. This is just really good at basically negating your opponent's monster effects. I can't tell you how many players. Sometimes it happened. I think it happened one time that somebody played into the Imperm column, which was a little sad, but it's good. This card is really insane. Like, I felt bad about it, but it's really a great card to be able to just stop your opponent's effects, especially when you open up like this and Ash. Your opponent's usually not going to have a lot more responses, so it's really good to be able to open up those cards, especially with this deck having so many one-card starters. So that's it for the main deck, guys. Let's take a look at the extra deck. So for the extra deck, we're playing 3 copies of a Rise Heart. The reason I'm playing 3 copies of a Rise Heart instead of 2 is because just in case you go up against another Kashtira deck or anything that's going to rip cards out of your extra deck, you do have the 3rd one just in case. You can play 2 if you're not playing against a lot of Kashtira, but I feel like 3 is perfect in this deck because it comes up that you're going to make usually 1 a game, but you do have sometimes that you will make 2. So I like the 3rd one just in case my opponent wants to try and take that 3rd one away. They can, and I'll still have 2 to be able to play with. We then play 2 copies of Shangri-Ira. Shangri-Ira is really good in this deck as a 2 of. You only really need 2. This card is basically the zone lock, and during the standby phase, you get to special summon a Kashtira monster from your deck, which is a super easy effect to forget. I think I forgot it twice at the regional, which is a little bit bad, but it does come up but by the time like I could bring them out, I had pretty much won the game. But it's really just an insane card to be able to lock zones and be able to lock 5. We then play a single copy of Mind Hacker. Mind Hacker is really good because you can look at your opponent's extra deck, rip a card, and then banish cards face down equal to the number of cards currently banished, which is really good that your opponent has. This card single-handedly helps you lock 2 zones with your copy of your Shangri-Ira, which is insane. And this card is just so good in the deck as one of. You always banish this card with Prosperity if you're going second because you're not going to start locking zones. But it's just a really good one of in the extra deck. I don't feel like you need more than 1 though. We then play 1 copy of Dark Armed Dragon, the Dragon of Annihilation. This card is so good in this deck. Being able to pop multiple cards a turn. It can't attack when it pops cards, but that's fine. Being able to just deal with cards against your opponent is just insane. And this was one of my favorite cards in the extra deck for obvious reasons. We then play a single copy of Mecha Phantom Beast Draco Sack. I never made this card. It was really good as an option though, but I usually ended up just banishing it with Prosperities. We then play a single copy of Big Eye. I made this card quite a few times. I have considered actually dropping the Mecha Phantom Beast Draco Sack for a second Big Eye. That is an option, but I still like to play the copy of Draco Sack in the deck because my opponents never went after Big Eye for some reason. They would like get rid of one of the copies of the Arise Heart or they get rid of a Zeus, and they never went after Big Eye for some reason. But it's still really good to be able to just take cards. At one point I got hit with like the Divine Karakuri card or whatever it is that's like a Nibiru during their turn if you activate monster effects, and I just took it and like smacked for it. I still ended up losing the game because they like completely demolished my board and I couldn't draw an out. But I took it with this and started like really coming back from that game, which was still really cool. We then play 2 copies of AA Zeus. AA Zeus is just good for board wiping. You play the second one just in case your opponent gets rid of the first one in the mirror match, and it's just really good in this deck. We then play a single copy of the Fossil Warrior Skull Knight. The reason I play this over Elder Emptiness is because Elder Emptiness is as soon as it touches the graveyard, and this is not. You can banish this at any time, and if your opponent, say, Lava Golems you or Kaijus you or deals with your copy of your Rise Heart, you can actually use this card when it touches the graveyard to be able to banish it whenever you want to, and then be able to banish or pop a card on the field, which is really good. Pop a monster, which is just really nice. I love that about this card, and it's so helpful in the deck to be able to play as a one-of in this particular build. We then play a single copy of Garua. Garua is a really good card because if it touches the graveyard, you get to draw a card. Play a single copy of Donner. Surprisingly enough, I didn't make this that much. This card is just good because it's basically like a break sword. You can pop a card on your field and pop a card on your opponent's field, which you're always popping this card, which is totally fine. And then finally, a single copy of Goliath. You attach this card to your copy of your Arise Heart to be able to make it so it cannot be destroyed by card effects. You banish this with Prosperity all the time. I will really quickly show you guys what I usually banish with Prosperity. I usually banish the copy of the Goliath, the Garua, the copy of the Fossil Knight, usually the Draco Sack. If I'm going second, I would banish the copy of the Mind Hacker. If you're going second, sometimes if I'm not going in the mirror, it would be a copy of Arise Heart and the copy of Donner. And I usually kept these cards in my extra deck to be able to make sure that I was going to play. But if I was going for second, I would usually do something like this instead. It just depended. Sometimes it would be the copy of Dark Armed. It just kind of depended on the play, but guaranteed, I was always usually banishing at least this when I was using Prosperity, just for you guys as reference. So let's go ahead and take a quick look at the side deck and see what we're playing. So for the side deck, we're playing 3 copies of Shifter. It felt like I sided this in every game except for like Flawandereeze and Kashtira. This card won me round 1 and round 2, and I think like round 5 or 6, something like that, against, I was playing against Mathmech, Adagnister, and Branded. And this just really like wins games. Like hands down, if you're not playing this, I don't know what you're doing in the deck. I really liked it in the side though, because if you're playing a mirror match, it's not great because it just doesn't really do anything against Flawander. I expected more Flawander players than I played against. And so I ended up just playing this card in the side, and I expected a lot of Kashtira players, and I'm glad I sided it, put it that way. We then play 3 copies of Ghost Bell. Shoutouts to my friend Seth for actually convincing me to play this card, and Tyler. But this card is really good in the deck because it helps you out Expulsion. And it came up quite a few times. You can even stop Branded in red with this card, which is really good. I love this card in the side. I wouldn't main it, but it's really good in the side because it just helps. You can even use this card in the Mathmech matchup, which is really cool. We then play a single copy of Feather Duster in the side and 2 copies of Cosmic Cyclone. These are really insane in the deck to basically just deal with back row. We play 3 copies of Evenly. I'm still on 3 copies of Evenly. I sided this in just about every game. If I lost round 1 and I'm going to go second, I'm going to end up siding in Evenly because it just helps me deal with my opponent's board and break their board. And it's so good. This card feels so good when you activate it and just deal with your opponent's field, and then you go full combo during main 2. We then play 3 copies of My Spice for this deck, and I love it. And it's 3 copies of Magic Deflector. This card is insane because it deals with the mirror match, dealing with the field spell. It deals with birth. It deals with all sorts of stuff. And it's just really good overall. In the Flawander match, it deals with Advent for Adventure. It deals with Unexplored Winds. It deals with their copy of the field spell, the map. It deals with the Advent. It deals with everything. Like, this deals with every spell card in Flawander. It's so good. And this card just deals with all the random, like, quick play spells that your opponent's going to activate and all their field spells. Like, I love this card in the deck, and it was so good. Like, this card functioned so well during the regional. It was ridiculous. And this was so cool. This card almost single-handedly won me so many games, and it was so insane. Like, this and Shifter, like, basically turned their entire turn off depending on what I was playing against. And it's really good against Rogue if you don't know what you're playing against. I always sided this in going second because you can use this card as a negate, which is really nice. So that's pretty much it for the deck, guys. If I would change it, I probably wouldn't change anything at all, to be perfectly honest with you. I might drop the Ogre. That might be it. I liked the Ogre because it was a good extender for the deck, but that's about it for the deck. I probably wouldn't change anything for it because it functioned perfectly for me. Like, I think I bricked 1 time, and it's 41 cards, and it functioned just absolutely, like, it was insane. Like, every game I was opening up either Field Spell or Unicorn or Theosis plus Fenrir, and you just have full combo at that point. Or Birth. Like, I think at one point, like, my craziest hand was like Birth, Fenrir, Unicorn, Ash Blossom, Imperm, and I was like, whoa, we have full combo. This is the best. We have full combo plus some. And I even got like a souvenir from and this was my first regional ever. Like, I've never been to a regional, ever had the opportunity to go to one. So this was the first regional that I've actually attended, and I topped, which is just crazy. Like, I love that. And I even got a keepsake, the Divine Dice from the regional, which is just such a cool like keepsake for this particular regional. And the guy that when I picked it up from the vendors, he said to me, he said, I hope that you roll 6s every single time that you roll this dice. And the first 2 times that I rolled this dice, I got a 6. So, I mean, it's now my lucky dice. I love this thing. It's so cool, and I loved it. And I will definitely be going to a lot of regionals. So, quick shout out as well to everybody who came up to me and just wanted to say hi and meet me at the regional. That was really nice of you guys. I had a lot of people come up to me and say, hey, it was kind of just amazing to see all you guys. And I hope if you guys see me at a regional, please come up and say hi. I love to meet you guys. It's so much fun for me. It gives me the warm fuzzies to see you guys, and it's just so much fun. And shout out to everybody at the regionals and the judges. You guys were awesome. You guys were all over the place helping us, and we really appreciated you guys because it was such a good event. 266 players at that event, and I got 12th on my first try at a regional. That is insane. That was so much fun. It was so much fun, and I look forward to my next one. So anyways, guys, this is DarkArmedDuelist. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, hit the bell there so you can become part of the notification squad, and definitely check out the Patreon down in the description down below, and we'll see you guys in the next video or at the next regional. See you guys.